To say to everybody, welcome to the BBK lecture for February. And we are delighted to have Keith Bartlem talking to us about being a bee inspector, and inspector calls is what we've called it. In the UK, we have some of the best disease control in the world, and that is partly down to good beekeepers who take part and support the system, but also down to the work of our bee inspectors and the faith we place in them. And personally, I don't see bee inspectors enough, because all the years when I was bringing up my kids, the bee inspector coming was a treat. You used to try and arrange it. So, because see the best practice, get your bee inspector in. So lots of aspects to being a bee inspector. I imagine the people are as tricky as the bees, Keith. We're really looking forward to hearing about it. So
Okay,
welcome.
thank you. Nice. Let's see if I can get this going now. Desktop. Let's go.
If I
And
can ask
then
people to mute themselves.
an inspector calls. Inspector Gould here. I would like to speak to Arthur Burling, please. Arthur Burling speaking. Hello, Mr. Burling. I got your number from Beebase. Are you still keeping bees? Could you tell me the number of colonies and apiaries that you have? And when would it be possible for me to come round? Now that is a bit from the play, but maybe it'll be an email, or it could be a text, or it's usually by the phone. And you can put your preferred contact details into Beebase. It's going to be rare, but bee inspectors have ID. Chances of a scam, somebody's pretending to be a bee inspector, I would suggest is quite small. However, bee inspectors do have ID. So an inspector calls can cause a variety of reactions from people. Startlement, grin and bear it. The one that I want to try and get everybody into at the end is it have a positive place. It's a win-win for both sides. Very rarely do we get, or in fact, I don't think I ever had. I had one guy who was slightly angry, but we managed to get round that with the person. And then sometimes you get puzzlement as well. So it can cause a variety of different reactions from the actual telephone call. Oops. Right. So an introduction from me. As you've already gathered, I'm not, well, I'm from north of the border. If you put enough whiskey into me, I actually come out with the Irish because I was actually born in Ireland. However, it all kind of started in terms of beekeeping in the late 80s over in the top left there, which is Cringlety House Hotel in just outside of Peebles in the borders of Scotland. And Eddie the gardener there, I was the gardener's boy. Eddie the gardener had bees, and this was pre-varroa, pre-oilseed rape at the time as well. So Eddie's idea of beekeeping was two supers on at the beginning of spring, followed by two supers off at the end. And the honey was gorgeous. I then went to Stirling University to study ecology, which set me up very nicely for a career in aviation. Firstly, bottom left there, I used to fly Tornado F3s on 11th Squadron in the Air Force, and that's really why I'm now based just outside of Bedale in North Yorkshire. And then came out of the RAF career into a civilian career of flying passengers to their holidays. So I was a skipper for 20 odd years up at Newcastle Airport until Thomas Cook went bust, which kind of spoilt my day. The bottom right is a couple of passions. One's the bees. This is Ellingstring up in the Yorkshire Dales, or the edge of the Yorkshire Dales, just behind a place called Masham or Masham, or depending on how you want to pronounce it. So I take my bees up there to the heather, and it's gorgeous honey. And that's one of the reasons why I keep bees, is actually for that honey. And the other passion there is my Land Rover, which is usually in bits, which it is at the present moment in the garage. However, Uh,
Big
what
cloud.
I've got on this is one of my favorite sayings for beekeeping. It's your relationship with your bees.
Smaller than that.
It's got nothing to do with me. What I'm going to do today is come up with some bits and pieces, some little tips and things like this that I've picked up, and then you can cherry pick. You can say, well, I quite like that, or no, I think that's rubbish, but that's fine. That's fine. I don't have a drama with that. I've spent the last 4 years as a seasonal bee inspector in the Northeast. You can, do I have a pointer? No, I don't. There's a white area there in the middle of the whole of the United Kingdom there, which is the North York Moors area. So I had a bit of that, followed by the Vale of York as well. So that was quite a big area, lots of beekeepers in there. But in terms of British beekeeping, there is different climates. So I'm expecting for those of you down south at the moment, your crocuses are out, your daffodils are out, stuff like that. Well, my daffs aren't anywhere close to it. Crocuses are not even thinking about it. There's different ideas for different places. Different places have different ideas. That's fine. That's great. Allegedly, I'm meant to know what I'm talking about, but after being a bee inspector and a master beekeeper. But actually, sometimes I find the best thing to do is to go away and have a cup of coffee and think about it, because it doesn't always, the answer isn't always there in front of you. Sometimes it takes a bit of time. So this is the back of my Golf on the left-hand side, which shows all the kit as a bee inspector. We have a variety of different bits of kit, main bit being heavily focused on hygiene, because one of the biggest things that we fear as or I did fear as a bee inspector was, well, I didn't have foulbrood until the bee inspector pitched up. A bit of a bad way to do things. So a lot of it is about hygiene and making sure that there is no transfer of disease between colonies and between apiaries. And this also is a big thing for myself. I had a barrier method where basically this kit I did not allow to go anywhere near my own bee kit for my own apiaries, because I was dead scared of bringing some of European foulbrood back in the car and then transferring it when I went to go and see my bees. So we'd come down to actually getting wet wipes onto your handles of the door handles of the car, of the steering wheel, the gear, anything that you could have touched. And we'll chat about a few bits and pieces there. On the left is the lateral flow device, which is basically a COVID test. And this is kind of one of the fundamental tools of a bee inspector. So you have one for American foulbrood and one for European foulbrood. And the picture on the right is a colleague of mine who has retired now. We were up on the North York Moors looking at a commercial beekeeper up on the heather there. Langstroth hives absolutely rammed full of bees in the bottom box, and in the top box was absolutely rammed full of heather honey. So much so that when they put all the hives on top of the unimog, it sank up to its axles, and they had to then take all the hives off, unstick the unimog, and then get them back on again. So it was, the last 3 years have been fabulous up at for the heather. So we'll see what happens this year. In terms of kit, when I'm actually wearing the bee suit, I have one of the most important things is your mobile phone. So have a mobile phone on you, just in case you go into anaphylactic shock. It can get quite serious quite quickly. Phone may save you. And then on the pockets that I would have on the bee suit, I would have on my left pocket, my left leg, left pocket was the European foulbrood LFD, and on the right-hand side, right pocket was my American foulbrood LFD. The reasons being that I thought the Americans were more right-wing than the Europeans. But that depends on your point of view, and if you think about Hungary and a few other places, but let's not go there. It was how I defined between the two pockets. Right. So actually what I now use, because I resigned as a bee inspector in October, I got a little bit sick of killing bees was the main reason, to be perfectly honest. So what I actually now use is, and they're very good, are the nitrile gloves. Now, unfortunately, some people react to the nitrile and the latex gloves, but nitrile gloves are really good, especially if you can get ones with the longer sleeve on them. However, they do let stings through occasionally, which we'll chat about in a minute or two. You got to have your toys. So I have a welding torch. Welding torches are a bit expensive, a bit over the top, but by goodness me, they work. All right. So they don't blow out. They're very good for scorching and sterilizing your kits, should you decide to go with that. Bit expensive. Your standard gas torch or your creme brulee little gas torch, you think, is good. You get some people that say, oh, you have to use matches and stuff like this. The Air Force has a saying, the first rule of combat is cheat. So use a blowtorch if you can to get your smoker going. And then always have a backup, because at one point that blowtorch is not going to be working, and your smoker will go out and things will start to get quite exciting quite quickly. The other thing I have there is a smoker box, which is a really good piece of kit because you can put your I put a stopper in the top of my smoker and pop it into the box. Because none of you will have ever got back into your car after being out beekeeping and found that the smoker has kept going and then smoked the inside of the car or smoked the inside of the honey house, because it's one way of stopping an unfortunate blaze starting to happen. So smoker boxes are quite handy. Right. Next bit, when as a bee inspector, we carry around quite a big bucket with our hive tools. I've got 2 hive tools in there. I recommend having two hive tools. One's the J tool, one's the other, what I would call a flatter one, which is the one I use more. I don't usually go for the lugs, because quite often if you go for the lugs, the lugs will break. So if you actually use the flatter one on the main bar of the hive, of the frame, then it's usually cracks without breaking the frame up. Breaking frames in front of beekeepers is not so good. All right. The washing soda we use should use is 4.5 liters to 1 kilogram of washing soda. So there's a thing of washing soda there, and a little drip of washing up liquid in it as well. The only trouble about this is if you get the lid off or you don't seal the lid properly and it leaks into the back of your car, it leaves quite a white mess from the soda crystals. But it's better to have it, and especially if you're going between apiaries. And as bee inspectors, between hives, we would wash our hive tools to make sure that we didn't transfer any bugs or anything like that from one hive to t'other. As a bee inspector, I used to wash my bee suits. I had 3 bee suits. I used to wash them every night, so that the next morning and for the next day's inspection, we would have bright, well, clean bee suits. It doesn't give a good impression pitching up to a beekeeper with the remains of the previous inspection all over the bee suits. It's not good, and it's a form of infection should it go that way. So as a result, now I actually wash my bee suits more regularly. I wouldn't say I do it every time I've gone into my bees, but I'll do it maybe about once a month or maybe once every 2 months, depending on how bad or how many times I've used the actual bee suit. Plastic garden tray is fabulous for putting in a super and stopping that ingress of honey that manages to get onto your door handles and into the kitchen and then up everywhere else inside the house. It's a very good way of stopping some of that honey, nectar, pollen, bits of wax from meandering around the house. It's quite good. I had used half boots or semi boots, which are great fun because these ones are a bit posh, to be perfectly honest, because they've got steel toe caps, which is one of the criteria that the bee unit had at the time. It's when you're standing in welly boots for a whole day in the middle of the summer when it's really hot and sticky. Half boots are nicer. The only trouble is with half boots is that if you get really nasty bees, which I'll chat about, they'll come down and sting you around the ankles really quickly. So what you need to do is then take your bee suit and take it over the top of the welly and seal it around the actual welly itself. However, that's only works if the elastic at the bottom of your bee suit is up and running. The potato sack is a good psychological warfare way of storing frames, which we'll chat about in a wee bits of time. Followed by these fire retardant gloves, which are really good for when you then decide to sterilize a nice wire queen excluder and holding onto it. Fire retardant gloves, strangely enough, metal conducts heat, so you need to be careful about it. But the best thing about these fire retardant gloves is A, they're relatively cheap, and B, they're fabulous gardening gloves. To the left, I picked these up from a couple of my beekeepers, and this is one of the great things about being a bee inspector is you get to see how different people keep bees and keep different ideas, and you think, oh, that's quite an idea. And so these pins, drawn pins, they're great because you can actually pick them up, and you could just about pick them up if you had those big leather gauntlets. But if you have the nitrile ones, perfect. Different colors, and I put the color that I've marked my queen, and I put a pin at the front of the hive. So when I walk up to the front of any of my hives, I know exactly what color the queen is marked. And then the one on the left is the spacers that you have. And you take off one of the bits of the plastic spacers, and then that makes it very easy to pop it on top of a frame. If you want to mark that frame for some reason, like a queen cell or something that makes you want to have come back to it. Alternatively, you can use a marker pen, or a pin, or all the rest of it. There's just different things that I've picked up along the line. So, nasty bees, bee health. You need to see the brood, all right? You need to get in to see the brood. So why did I say 2 hive tools? And here's the story of nasty bees. So I go and talk to a lady, and I just coming around to see her bees. So I'm going to see her bees, and we're walking down to the bees, and it's 2 14 by 12, 2 deep broods, brood boxes, one on top of the other, crown board roof. And I'm sat there and, stood there and get togged up and about to go into the hive. And so when I go into a hive, I don't actually smoke the entrance. I wait there with my smoker and see and react to how the bees are. Okay. Now, usually when people are watching you inspect and stuff like that, they're right beside you, and they want to see what you're looking at, and they want to see what you're picking up and all the rest of it. So, and actually, so this lady was right beside me as I took the roof off, and then just as I cracked the crown board, she took a step back. I clocked this, all right? So if you're ever at somebody's bees, and just as you're about to go into them, they take a step back, run, okay? Just run, because what happens next is not terribly pleasant. So she takes a step back. I undo the crown board, take the crown board off, okay? And then I've got my hand over the top of the hive with my hive tool, and I get 8 stings, bang, 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 straight on top of my hand like this. At which point I go, ow. Well, I don't. I say something different, but I say ow, and then and drop my hive tool. Yep, my hive tool doesn't land on top of the hive and fall off into the grass or anything like that. It doesn't. It decides to go through the first brood box, down to the second brood box. At which point I have literally a volcano of bees. These bees are piling out of this hive. And I've totally lost control of it. There's no way I'm going to be able to inspect it. So I quickly put on the crown board and then basically run away. Okay, so run, I don't know, about 50 meters away. Double glove, because if you wear two sets of nitrile gloves, it's very difficult for the bees to sting through that. Thank you very much. And then I put my put my bee suit over my wellies, and then have come back and have at these nasty bees. They didn't have any disease, thankfully. Well, maybe not. Maybe it would have been better to get rid of them. Please don't have nasty bees. Nasty bees are not good. Beekeeping is meant to be fun, enjoyment. But quite a lot of people don't actually know what nasty bees are. Now, nasty bees are the ones that meet you before you get there. They're the ones that follow you for at least 100 meters or well, and probably less, or even 200 meters. I've had one where I've gone round the field and they still had at me. These are the ones that are covering your veil and all the rest of it. Then you'll get other people out there that will tell you that I'm talking rubbish and that nasty bees are really good because they produce a lot of honey. And one of the reasons why they do produce a lot of honey is because people are too scared to go inside them, so they leave them alone and then take the honey when they can do it. But nasty bees it's not fun. Beekeeping is meant to be fun, and it's not good, especially if you're in an urban environment and for the genetic pool of people around you. Okay. So that's the reason why you have two hive tools, because if you drop one down through a hive, then you've got another one to be able to come back and retrieve it. And the other reason for two hive tools is because you'll drop one in the grass and you won't be able to find it. And then you have another one, or you're like me where I put things down and then go, hang on, where did I leave it? So two hive tools is a bit of a bonus. So going into a hive, we quick. People say you're quick. You're quick. Well, yes, we are quick because we're there to do a job and get into the brood to have a look at the brood. So this is on my deck. I took pictures of it, so it's practical rather than actually on a bee stand, which we'll talk about later. So the roof comes off, and these little small ladders are really handy for putting kit on. Saves your back. Okay, so off comes the roof. Okay, next bit, first super off and on to the roof at a diagonal. Tries to reduce the number of bees being squashed. I haven't touched the crown board at this point. Crown board then comes straight off and goes straight onto the second super if it's there. Although if it's not there, we leave it straight on. Second super straight on top of the first super. And then you're left with the queen excluder. It's bish bash bosh. It's quick. The bees hardly react to it. I've got my smoker sat there. For the beginners out there, smoke as much as you want. Don't worry about it. Smoke as much as you want. For the people that have had a bit of time with their bees, maybe put the smoker upwind, because then it wafts over your bees and doesn't actually cause too much trouble. All right. I don't smoke the front entrance of a hive when I'm inspecting it. I look at the front entrance because sometimes you can pick up some things that are going on there. So you get to this queen excluder. Now this queen excluder, the zinc queen excluder, I particularly hate. Okay. But a lot of people like it because it's cheap. It does the job. Can't think of anything else really else for going with it, to be perfectly honest. So this what I don't like about it is that it squashes bees when you put it down. I prefer having a wired queen excluder with a bee space on top of it. But the zinc ones go down like this. So if you do pick it up, you have to then get your hive tool in underneath it and then hold the back left corner or back right corner, depending if you're left-handed, right-handed. And then pull it up and then wait for it to before it goes ping. Because if it goes ping, A, it puts a vibration into the bees, and B, you may get a flash of blue or white or green as the queen goes. Because occasionally, very occasionally, the queen is actually on the queen excluder. I have been known to be stuck in front of a beehive on my hands and knees trying to find queens. Has been happened. Then the queen excluder goes down in front of the hive. This is incorrect here at the on this picture. I picked this up today, but I didn't change the picture. It's covering the entrance, so I have it below the entrance. The idea being that the queen, if the queen is actually on there, she may be able to wander up and then back into the hive. But if you look at the frames there, I have 11 frames in that brood box, all right, with a dummy board. Now, you will get people that will tell you that's rubbish. You should have 12 frames because 12 frames is much better because you get an extra frame of bees and stores and all the rest of it. Yes, you do, but they are very tight. They're very tight inside that brood box. All right, so as a result, the first frame that you pull out, and it can mean that you then roll your bees as you're pulling them out. Rolling and then killing bees is not good beekeeping because at that point, the bees then start to get a whiff of it, and then that starts to bring them up, and then that's not good. All right. Alternatively, go with 11 frames. Think about double brood if you're on nationals. Um, Take out the dummy board, put it to one side, and now you have an area to work with. All right, so you can then, especially with rails, you can slide the frames around back and forth and gives you a bit of space. You then need to pick up the frame and give it a little shake, try and not rattle the sides. Because again, that winds the bees up, and then there's also a possibility that you may kill the queen or snip the queen as on the edge. Okay. And what you're actually looking for, and when I go through, well, used to go through them, and still, when I go looking into my own bees, I'm, off, on, down, up, have a look at the next one, have a look at the next one. And what I'm actually looking for is pepper pot. And if I see pepper pot, I slow down immediately, all right? Because then I think, hang on, what is going on with this hive? On the right-hand side there, you have a very nice brood frame of lovely brood that's sealed, right? And we've got a nice flat biscuit, digestive biscuit color. I mean, you're thinking, oh, well, hang on, there's lines in that which go with the lines of the foundation, the wire. Now, there's multiple theories about that. But I've seen some bees lay on it, and some queens lay on it, and other queens don't. It just seems to be one of the things that they do. But having a pattern like that is not a problem. Having a brood pattern on the left, like that, where it's spotty, like someone shot it with a 12 bore, um, that's when you need to slow down. But it doesn't mean to say that actually you've got a problem. You may have a young queen that's only just starting to lay. It may be bad weather. Bad weather, they will start to eat their young larvae, all right? And they'll start eating some of the unsealed brood. So last April, the spring of last year, was desperate because of the way the weather was, and there was multiple problems with starvation, right, where the bees were literally starving. And people were missing the bees starving because they could see the fields of oilseed rape, and they're going automatically thinking, well, there's a field of oilseed rape there, then bees are all right. No, not necessarily. And then again, even in an apiary, you can have a colony that's starving that's right beside another colony that's going quite well. So keep an eye. The first couple of months of the season are desperately dangerous for bees as they're trying to build out of spring. Out of the winter and into the spring and getting the population up and running. All right. So pepper pot is one of these things to look for to think about what's going on. Right. A drone layer. So remember that nice flat surface of nice, lovely brood. Now, drone layer. This is where where the queen has got no sperm left inside her, so she's laying unfertilized eggs. All right, but she lays them into worker cells because she doesn't realize that she has no sperm left. And these eggs then develop into stunted drones, as the case is, because they're concealed inside a worker cell, and you get these undulating tops, and I call it a stormy sea. So you get the up and down type of stuff. It's also pepper pot because they don't lay in every cell. You also get discolored larvae. All right, and this is because the larvae are they're basically ignored by the workers because they know they're going to turn into drones. So they get ignored by the weather and get a secondary infection, and you start to get discolored brood. Okay, and then that can also happen with misshapen larvae, because if you get misshapen larvae and discolored brood, you can start thinking, oh, hang on, I've got something here going. So drone layer, be careful of. All right. There's another thing called Sacbrood, which is a virus. Some of us call it false foulbrood. And I have been caught out by Sacbrood a couple of times because it gives you all the nice, it's, the round peg into the square hole type of thing. We've got perforations, we've got sunken cappings, we've got black scale, we have ropiness, you get discolored melted larvae, and you also get pepper pot. All of these things, you can make it fit. You can make it fit American foulbrood and you can make it fit European foulbrood. And so I pitched up one day to a thing and was convinced I had American foulbrood. So much I rang my boss and went, oh, I've got American foulbrood. Um, and in fact, I didn't have American foulbrood. I had Sacbrood, but I had never seen it in such concentrations. To be honest, there was about 4 frames of it with lots of black scale. There was ropiness. So you do the ropiness test, which they say with a matchstick, but who has a matchstick when they're out with the bees? So sometimes get a little stick or a bit of grass, and you can use that matchstick to go into a cell, twist it a little bit, and it will pull out, and it will rope. It will rope about that much, about 4 to 5 mil. But usually the larvae will come out with it. Now with American foulbrood, it will rope at least this, hang on, this much, about a centimeter, and the larvae doesn't come out with it. All right. So this is Sacbrood. You get discolored melted larvae with Sacbrood, but they keep their segmentation. You can still see the segmentation in it, unlike European foulbrood, where the segmentation kind of dissolves away with the mess of European foulbrood. But again, it's pepper pot. So have a look at people call it the Chinese slipper because you get this pointy bit of the end of the larvae, or banana. People sometimes call it like a banana as well. All right. So Sacbrood is why we call false foulbrood, and I used to see Sacbrood constantly. It's endemic around the country. Well, not around the country, around North Yorkshire, it certainly is. And what I've seen is, and I can't prove it to you, it's just a feeling in the water from the number of observations I've had or inspections I've had. With high varroa loads, you get more Sacbrood and you get more ball brood, but I can't prove that to you. That's just how it's come across to me with my inspecting times. Right. And this is the picture from Beebase on the NBU site, EFB in all its horrible glory. It is very difficult to see sometimes. And the reason why it's difficult to see is because the bees recognize that the larvae is infected and out it comes. However, if that's the case, you will then get pepper pot. All right. The best time for an inspector to find European foulbrood is just after some lousy weather. So there's been some lousy weather, the bees are confined, they're under a bit of stress, and EFB, they haven't been able to get the EFB out of the hive, or the infected larvae out of the hive, and sometimes you will then, it's easier for you to find it. And then sometimes the actual infection is really small. So I learned relatively quickly. I was going through the hives going, oh, this is a really nice hive. Oh, this is really, oh, look at that. That's great. This is great. This is great. And I went, oh, and there was three larvae that were out. Just didn't look right. And then sure enough, out comes the LFD and things. So it turned out to be. So I learned that actually what I do, so I'd go through the frames and things, and if I saw something that I wasn't sure about, I would mark it and then go on to see if there was actually anything else to try and confirm, or if there was a problem. If you have a doubt about a larvae or about a hive, take a picture. I remember I said about having a mobile phone with you. Don't be like me where I try and take a picture and take a selfie, but take a couple of pictures if you can. and then try and do a self-imposed standstill. So if you've got doubts about a colony in an apiary, then the standstill is basically don't then move stuff away from that apiary. Like don't give people swarms, don't give people bees, don't bring things in and out if you can, and call the inspector or email the inspector with the picture of the EFB. All right, EFB and stress. All right, you can tell I got quite good at finding EFB, unfortunately. Um, it's about morale as well. If they're infected badly, the morale of the whole hive just goes down, and they look at you as if, well, what you doing here? So EFB, look at the feel of the morale. Sometimes people pick it up because one of the hives is not doing so well as the other ones. Right. So this is an EFB positive hive. It's got a yellow crayon mark across it, so that when I come back to it after the tests have gone to the lab, I know that hive hasn't been messed about with. Okay. So it's a visual identification by the inspector. It's then backed up usually in the field with a lateral flow device. And then that and a sample is then sent to the lab to get the yes, or it's usually yes, to be perfectly honest. It's quite rare for positive LFD to come back negative. Then, if you find one, then we're going to start looking at other hives, other apiaries of that beekeeper, put in a standstill so nothing in or out of that apiary, trying to limit the infection of infected material going out. Sometimes beekeepers share equipment or bring bits of brood frames in, bits of equipment out. Okay. I've got down choices because the choices are now with European foulbrood are either shook swarm or destruction, and there's a couple of reasons either which way, which we'll chat about in a minute or two. Insurance. I had two occasions where the one I did 22 shook swarms in one day. I was knackered by the end of it. Unfortunately, the guy was only insured for 10 hives, but we had to do 22. So the insurance didn't work for him, I'm afraid. Another chap, I said, I found it and said, right, well, you better check the insurance that you've got the right amount of insurance for the number of hives that you have, and he hadn't renewed his membership of the bee association. So as a result, his insurance was invalidated. So keep on top of your insurance and keep on top of the number of hives that you actually have. All right, because if you don't have enough hives insured, you may fall foul of it all. Finding the source can be very difficult. Sometimes it's not the beekeeper's fault. Sometimes it is, but we'll chat about that in a bit. And the nearest neighbor as well. We need to be looking at and thinking about. So I won't go into shook swarm in big detail because, to be honest, I'll leave it as homework for you. Shook swarm, consider it. I mean, we're coming into spring now. We're starting to think what we're going to do, what we're going to achieve in this summer's beekeeping season. It is a very good colony management manipulation. The bees bounce back from it, but it doesn't make you feel good, okay? Because you are getting rid of a whole wad of brood, that's either sealed or unsealed, and it can not sit with you too well. That's where the potato sacks come in, because then you put the frames inside the potato sacks and then put it on the fire or get rid of them. All right, it's the psychological stuff. Time of year, you need to, after middle of August, generally shook swarm, it's getting too late for the bees to be able to build up to give them the right numbers to get into the winter. All right. The number of bees, we call 6 frames as a minimum. You can get away with a wee bit less if you put it into a shook swarm into a polynuke, but you need to be really careful with that one. It is very good for varroa control. It's very good for swarm prevention, and it's very good for comb change. So think about a shook swarm. However, and again, I know beekeepers that are out there, they shook swarm every year. All right. And in terms of European foulbrood, if you do a shook swarm, it's got a 95% chance that it's not coming back that year. I have a very experienced inspector, and he used to say, you do a shook swarm the first year, you find it, do a shook swarm, and then the next year do another shook swarm, which sounds a lot of investment in time and money. However, it stops the European foulbrood coming back. All right. The insurance people now for 2025 are doing a whole apiary shook swarm. That's the way ahead. If you get European foulbrood, in fact, I'm just going to show you an example of it. It will, in one apiary, let's say you've got 5 hives and you've only got one that comes up with it. Well, sometimes I can't find it. You know, I'm pretty sure it's got it, but I can't find it. So, you know, I have to wait for it to be stressed for it to come back. It's better to do the whole apiary. So again, with one of the day that we did the 22, that was a big job. We were going to do 15, but we talked the beekeeper into doing the whole apiary, which was 22, which was correct. It was the right decision, because actually, when I went through some of the colonies that weren't designated for a shook swarm that time, I could actually start to see some of the effects of EFB. You know, because when I initially went through them, they weren't there. All right. So whole apiary shook swarms way ahead. And this is an example of it here. So it's all the data's taken away from it. It's in a valley in North Yorkshire. Okay. So the red dot is the poor chap that had European foulbrood. A couple of destructions, a couple of shook swarms. The middle green dot is the valley, the chap that learned his beekeeping off YouTube. So we had a little discussion about how to build how to put a hive together properly. So we turned the brood box the other way around, and things worked out a little bit better for him. And then the lady at the bottom, she was one of these she likes bees in her garden, so she had bees in her garden. That's fine, you know, treated for varroa, but didn't do much else really, to be perfectly honest, which is fine. Yeah, great. Year 2, strangely enough, because we hadn't done a whole apiary shook swarm, EFB came back. Okay. And then the guy in the middle was doing fine, and the lady at the bottom, she was doing fine. And then year 3, it turns a little bit different, because at this point I did a talk to the local association, and then suddenly a number of apiary sites that weren't on Beebase pitched up. Unfortunately, the lady that didn't do anything in terms of beekeeping, moving her bees or stuff like this, got EFB. And unfortunately, her colony had to be destroyed because it was a very bad infection and very few bees. Literally across the road, there was another apiary, and they didn't have it. It was bad luck for this poor lady. Chap in the middle was still, you know, learning his craft from YouTube. Chap at the top again had EFB, some more destructions, more shook swarms. But the two on the red dots on the left, these were abandoned apiaries, and they were in a shocking state. They hadn't been looked at for 15 years. And these were basically the sump of EFB in this area. So basically the bees were, you know, they were swarming out, going into one of these old hives, picking up the EFB from the previous incumbents. Then they would probably die out, and then, you know, for the ladies, the red dot at the bottom there, that lady, her bees would then come up and then rob the hive, take the EFB back, bang, that's the reason why she got European foulbrood. And then there's a dot at the top, a white dot at the top, and this is a beekeeper that comes into that area for the heather. And unfortunately, I didn't have the chance to get into his bees because they were quite close to the infected colonies. And one of my colleagues is going to be looking at his bees this season. So hopefully he hasn't brought it back with him. So it's not a problem about EFB. It can be in feral colonies. or as this case was, it was abandoned colonies, which was, it took me a while to find them, but once I got them, I got rid of them. It's good. So, inspectors' frustrations are my frustrations as a bee inspector. Okay. Hive stands. Picture on the right is an ironing board. It is not a hive stand. All right. I know there's upcycle and recycle and all the rest of it. And yes, possibly you could put an Apiary on the top of it and all the rest of it. But no, it's an ironing board designed very well and all the rest of it for ironing, right? It does not take an actual box, okay? And if you get your hive stand wrong, this is what happens. You get bees that are trying to work it on the side there. And actually, that was quite a nice colony sat in there, but the hive stand collapsed. And if you don't put a slab underneath some of these smaller hive stands, if the rats get in or the rabbits get in, it can start getting to places. And I've been to one hive stand where we touched it and it actually started to wobble. And as inspectors, we're meant to put the hive back into the same position as we found it. Well, I didn't in this case. I actually put it the right way up. So other hive stands. Chap on the left was an ex-builder and had quite a bit of stuff, and it's the proverbial hive stand. Very good. It's quite high because the area floods, and it's great. It's big. It's solid. It's again, it's at hip height for the top of the frames, and you've got space on the side or in the middle of it. He also has a very cunning brick trick on the top. So that brick there apparently means that the hive is great. Everything's working and all the rest of it. There is a different signs. If it's queenless, the brick is placed somewhere else. If it needs feeding, the brick's placed somewhere. So basically, that's his notebook, is the brick on the top of the hive. He explained it to me, but it went over the top of my head. But it works for him. So great. If it works, well, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I got the Leaning Tower of Pisa there, which was a bit of a nightmare to go through because there was no queen excluder. Thank you very much. Yes, yeah, hive stands. Make sure they stand up. A lot of people put boxes on in the spring because they think, oh, all right, well, one of the swarming things is they need space. They need space. Okay, so let's put more space on. And so you get these massive towers. Yeah, and all the bees do is funnel all the way up to them, chimney up through the middle of it, and don't actually fill it out. Okay, so horses for courses. Just to practice what I preach, these two apiaries are my apiaries. Okay, so the one on the left is at Floodbridge. It's east facing, so I have poly hives there. I've got them on two beams on two breeze blocks, the breeze blocks with holes in the middle. And every apiary that I've got those breeze blocks on stands, I have a great tit's nest, which is great. So I have, which is nice to see the great tit when I come in and out. Still haven't figured out how the great tits fledglings get out of the hole, but anyway, they do. So it's nice having them. For those of you quite keen with the eyesight there, there's nadiring going on with those hives there on the right-hand side. That's Craycall. Okay, and if you can get deep roofs, please do. It gives them an extra bit of insulation and they don't blow off, which is another bonus. This end hive here on the left is a bit of a nightmare at the moment. It's got brace comb in the roof and stuff like that. So I'll have to sort that out in the spring without breaking the polystyrene. So we'll see how that works. On the left here is a couple of colonies on top of Ripon Cathedral. Quite airy up there, do really well. Nice sunny spot, bit of a sun trap actually. The only problem about it is that when you get to it, it's in a very small concealed spiral staircase inside the cathedral. So you walk in with a lighted smoker into a cathedral, not a good thing to do. All right, they get, understandably, with the amount of wood inside cathedrals and what happened at York, there is a fire risk. So I learned the second time I didn't light the smoker until I got up onto the roof. the beekeeper there wants to get the bees off the roof and wants to move them away. The only slight trouble is that uh, from the spiral staircase, which is quite tight actually, to get through out onto the roof, it's even tighter, and so you can't actually get a brood box square on to that. You have to put it outside. So at the moment, there's talk about putting a rope over to the side and lowering the beehive, which might not work so well. For those of you on the right, that was oh yeah, I was doing talking, chatting to the chaplain, really nice guy, and yeah, so I see you've got a bait hive on top of the wall. Yeah, thinking this is the bait hive on top of the wall. And he said, no, no, that's my beehive. Right, because there isn't such thing as a perfect apiary, and this is where the chap had his hive. And I'm thinking, oh, great, good. Now, as a bee inspector, you're not meant to climb ladders and stuff like that, but yeah, well, like rock climbing, right? Yeah, yeah. So anyway, I've got my left foot on the on the step ladder. I've got the right foot on the piece of wood, and I'm taking the roof off. And then I'm kind of looking around, thinking, well, where am I going to put my smoker? Where am I putting my smoker? And so I put my smoker down there on the right, on the thing on the right, which so happens to be the propane tank. Maybe not the best move I've made. All right, so yeah, people put bees where they can, and sometimes they're very successful. Sometimes they're not so successful. Left side, well, I do like these wired queen excluders. Unfortunately for the drone population of that colony at that time, they couldn't get through it, and so that's their heads of the poor old drones. All right, they eat the bodies, but they seem to leave the heads for some reason. And then the one on the right, that was one of the abandoned hives that I found, and that's wax moth getting going. And wax moth has got huge potential for polystyrene recycling, I believe. There's quite a bit of work going on with that because they're pretty good at getting rid of bits and pieces. It's nature's way of cleaning up, but it was these hives were not good. And the other pet hate of mine is frame spacing. Okay, frame spacing is fundamental to beekeeping. It is, to frame it's beekeeping. You have to have frame spacing and correct frame spacing, because if you don't get correct frame spacing, you get brace comb. If you get brace comb, you then don't enjoy your beekeeping, because what happens is you start opening up the hive. You start breaking open the brace comb, you start breaking open larvae and pupae and stuff like this. The bees start getting upset with you, you start getting upset with the bees, and it's lose-lose. If you get the frame spacing right, you don't have the brace comb problem. You've got a dummy board in on the end there, and it's everything, you've got space, and you can start to move, and you can manipulate your bees, and it's fine. In this one on the left-hand side, there is also another colony sitting underneath it, underneath the mesh floor. There was a bit of, and it was on a pallet as well. So it was just like, how do I look at that one? And then on the right-hand side, that was an old WBC, which they decided to go into the void at the top. I tried to do a pre-inspection on that, but it's a bit difficult. So I actually got my hands inside the inside the well, not they're not frames, inside the combs, and then gently open them up gently, and then put a bit of smoke and try it. And then I was looking for the pepper pot, and I couldn't see it. So as far as I was concerned, they weren't diseased. They didn't show anything like that. And you would be gobsmacked at how warm it is inside your colonies. Again, with the nitrile gloves, you can feel the heat through them fairly quickly. And if you go into your house when it's quite cold, then you'll realize the amount of heat that is generated inside there. Uh, there is no such thing as finger spacing. Well, really? There is no such thing as finger spacing, right? You get people that go, oh, well, I'll do this and finger spacing, and they get their supers and they finger space, and that'll do. That's nice white space. And then they pick it up the super and push it back onto the hive, and yes, all the frames move as they go along it. Controversially here, probably. Castellations, brood frames, castellations. Yes, castellations are great in the supers. Please don't do it in the brood boxes, all right? And the reason why I say that is because you then have to pick up the frame and put it on top of the castle. Pick up the frame, top of the castle. And then when you want to finish it, when you finish the inspection, you've got to put them all back. All right. So there, it's multiple movements and all the rest of it. Wow. On a rail, slide. Okay. And the other problem about castellations is that if you get certain queen excluders straight on top of the castellations, you can trap, if the queen is unlucky enough to be in there, you can trap the queen inside between the lugs and stuff like that. So rails, if you can, please. Castellations, no much. And then the box on the right is my ultimate nightmare. So it's a brood box with castellations and brace comb. And try and find your way through that one without causing huge amounts of trauma to the bees, the beekeeper, and gooey mess everywhere. So from things that I dislike to friends, these alpacas, uh, very defensive of the beekeeper lady that I was with that day. But they came along to say hello for a wee while. And then the hive on the right, the hive on the right is from a new beekeeper, and she's very good. Kit was really good. Bees lovely, and then she has these charms on top of the hives. People love their bees. People keep bees for a variety of different reasons, and this lady had charms on top of her hive, which is great. Great, you know, you love your bees, and you know, I don't know what the charms do, but I don't really care, to be honest. The lady believes in them. That's fine. Great, excellent. Uh, Beebase, little thing for the bee unit. It's a fabulous resource and resources for beekeepers. Lots of very good information on there, things on chook swarms, for example. But what I would ask is if you can, please make sure that your personal details are updated on there, please. For the bee inspectors, it's quite frustrating trying to sometimes get in contact with people if the phone numbers are out of date. You know, for the classic example, a lot of people had landlines, and now everyone's getting rid of landlines and they're going for their mobiles. So if you can, please update your Beebase records if you can. You've probably forgotten the password, like I have, or have the same password for everyone, but that's not going to. And this is track and trace, which is I'm a natural beekeeper, right? Okay, great. Don't judge people. You know, we go out. We're looking at the bee health. That's what we're after. And I said, oh, the bees are at the back of the garden. Okay, right, okay. I won't be there. All right, fine. So anyway, I walk into the back of the garden and I have to do. Thankfully, it was a nice warm day, and I had to do my own track and trace. So I got my track and trace. And the beehive is the little, you may be able to pick it up in the middle of the picture there. You can just about see a green Abello plastic hive, not plastic, polystyrene hive, sorry, in the back there. So I hacked my way through that, went into the hive, which hadn't been opened for quite a while. Bees were healthy. Hurrah! Thank you very much. It gave me no joy in finding infected colonies, and closed up and headed back for the day. Actually, I was on that one. So that was the track and trace. And talking of track and tracing, this is the yellow-legged hornet or Asian hornets, and I went down to Capel La Fern 2 years ago, which is basically what I would call secondary jungle. It was quite an interesting place. I loved it actually because we're chasing hornets. They're fabulous machines, but a definite threat to beekeepers. All right, and to be honest, you know, people in the north, we all thought, yeah, it's a southern problem, right up to the point where we had a hornet's nest in Yarm, which is in Teesside, which is about it's further north than the Watford Gap for the Southerners. All right, so basically it was a big wake up call for people in the north, going, oh, right, okay, and there was another one at Hull as well. Okay. So I went chasing hornets at Capel La Fern there, and sorry to be so sad and lonely, but it was brilliant because the weather was half decent as well. But there was the odd steam engine going past, which was great. And then more importantly for me with my aviation, there was the Battle of Britain flight is on the top of the Battle of Britain Memorial is on top of the hill. And every now and again, a Spitfire would come past and a Hurricane would come past, and it was great. Yeah. The yellow-legged hornet. Let's hope we don't have let's hope we don't have a big easterly breeze early in the spring, which then brings a whole wad of queens across. Let's hope that doesn't happen. And there's a lot of very good work going on down in Kent and on other places to try and stop this. Yes, hornet, not good. So this is me finishing on it. This is the only reference in the play. Remember, I started with the play, but the way some of these cranks talk, and right now you think everyone has to look after everybody else, as if we're all mixed up together like bees in a hive, community and all that nonsense. Yes, politically things are moving, but I won't go there. So an inspector calls. If the inspector does call, it's a win-win. All right, it's a win for the inspector. It's a win. It's a win for you. Technically, the inspectors aren't meant to do some beekeeping, but we might accidentally help mark your queen, find your queen, bits and pieces like that. All right, and then finishing off. I do talks and stuff like this in memory of my mother, actually, who had Parkinson's disease, my late mother had Parkinson's. So the fee from this talk is going to Parkinson's. So on behalf of my mother, on behalf of Parkinson's, on behalf of myself, thank you for your time. I wish you the best of luck with your beekeeping. And then sometimes it's better to go and have a coffee. Thank you. Right, I'm going to stop sharing and be quiet for a while.
Thank you very much, Keith. And not for long, because I've already got some questions for you, if you don't mind. The first couple, as I suspect you might have heard a few times, are about clarifying what certain things mean. So somebody's asked, Martin's asked, do you lock the bees in if EFB is suspected? What do you mean by closing up the hive?
All right. Yes and no. Right. Yes, you lock them up because you don't seal the hive up. It's under basically it's under suspicion that it's got EFB. All right. So you don't actually close the hive up because then, if it's not EFB, then technically you're killing the hive. And you want the hive to keep going, especially if you're going to make it into a shook swarm. So uh, yes, you do close it up if you are going to destroy the hive. And so you wait till the evening and then put some foam in or close the entrance up or use gaffer tape. And you should, if you ever get to that position, you get a piece of paper that basically tells you how to do it and stuff like this. I had one chap that didn't do that, and we had to put the gaffer tape around it while I came in the evening, and then we poured the petrol in, which is horrible. Walk away if you're going to do that. So pour the petrol in, and sure enough, all the bees started to come straight out. Funnily enough, because it was an old hive, and so they all started coming out from underneath the floor and all the rest of it. So I then went, oh, well, I've got to stop these bees coming out. So I got my torch out and started doing it. And funnily enough, petrol, bees, flames, boom. So I blew the roof off the hive, unfortunately. Came back down on top of the hive. But there you go. So yes and no.
So no, if it's for a standstill order, you just close it down and keep the entrance smallish. But yes, if you're told to destroy it. Okie
Yeah.
dokie, thank you. Another one, and now I detect a slight bit of panic behind this one. Angus says, when you did a shook swarm for 22 hives, did they have enough spare frames and wax ready to go?
Yes, he did. Yeah. He was a very good beekeeper in that respect, and we work with the beekeepers, In fact, to be perfectly honest, I bought him some bits and pieces because I was going past Thorns the week before, so I bought him some extra bits and he paid me back. But yeah, he put an awful lot of work in to the shook swarm, but the shook swarms are done by the inspectors, so we had a team of five or six at that one. Uh, yeah, and it was hard work. It was really hard work. Very big fire. It's hard, sweaty, and then you have to clean and scorch the boxes. We had over 100 odd boxes. It was a bit of Yeah, it was a big day. Big day.
Okay, thank you. Now, we've got one here from somebody with the best surname in beekeeping, Mr. Honigman. That must be an alias, surely. Uh, what is your favorite frame spacing? Do you like Hoffman? Some people say they're too small for British bees.
I like Hoffman's. I like Hoffman's with wide bars. So I've only got one bee space between them. I
Okay.
like that. And the reason why I like that is A, because I move my bees up and down to the heather. They don't seem to move in the transit too much. And B, I like it because in my idea of beekeeping, there's less brace comb between them and there's more insulation for the brood nest. But I'm on 14 by 12s. I don't do nationals, or if I do nationals, I do double brood.
Okay, thank you. Do you look for small hive beetle as well when you're inspecting?
Yes, we do. And there's the inspectors have sentinel apiaries, which are around certain ports, and they go there, try to go there 3 times a year. And instead, that kind of where I was going, which was probably perplex a few people where I go bish bash bosh, where we're going through quite quickly. Well, actually, we changed the way we go through through the hive, and we specifically look for where the small hive beetle may be, either on the floor or on the roof and stuff like this, in the nooks and crannies. Yeah,
Oh, thank you.
take a bit more time.
And we got another one here. I'm not sure I quite follow Keith's description of how Sacbrood and EFB affect segmentation. Could you explain that again, please?
Right, sure. So Sacbrood is a virus, and it gets inside the larvae, and so that when you've got a nice larvae, it's curly C, and it's segmented. Right now, the minute it starts getting out of that segmentation, that nice curly C, you need to start thinking, hang on, what's going on here? All right. And with sac brood, it kind of slopes down into the bottom of the cell and then elongates itself out. And so actually, instead of getting a nice segmentation where you can see basically the ripples down the larvae, it doesn't, the ripples are still there, but it's all kind of white. All right. And that's with sac brood and sac brood only. EFB, you won't see these segmentations down through the larvae. They kind of it all melts into one amorphous, horrible mass, generally, if you can find it.
Um, I'm just looking for. Thank you. That's much clearer. I think that person's responded. There are several people saying thank you very much for raising money for Parkinson's.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
and some very appreciative comments from North Yorkshire residents too. Um,
All right, sorry, have a
uh,
look.
let's see. Right, we have a question from a beginner,
Hmm.
and I think it would be good for all of us. So, would you explain a shook swarm?
Oh, um, well, to put an analogy from it, it's like going from your house with your whole family and then going into a hospital ward or something like that where it's all clean. Uh, so what you're doing is you're taking all the living bees, all the bees that have hatched and are walking around inside your colony. So you've got this, for argument's sake, you've got 10,000 bees, including the babies, inside a colony. And of those 10,000 bees, you've got maybe 6,000 out of the cells, for argument's sake. So what you're actually doing is you got the box and you find another box and a new box for your or new hive for your thing. So you change the floor so the floor is lovely and clean. It's been it's been scorched. You then have a new brood box, again scorched, and then you have frames which are it depends. From Yorkshire, they say, "Oh, I mean, you could use the old frames." No, you don't. I had a bee inspector who basically said, "It's not worth it. Just buy new frames. Buy new frames, new foundation, and they're all made up, and you have 11 of them in the box. And those 6,000 bees that were in the initial box, you take them and you pop them into the new box. And it's, if you can imagine like a swarm, if those 6,000 bees had come out and sat on a tree, and then you'd come along with your new box and pop them into the new box, that's the idea. And the whole idea is that if there's any EFB in these bees, it's now on the bees or in their stomachs, and then they get inside the box. Because there's no larvae inside that box now, because basically it's just foundation and bees, the EFB gets taken out through the back ends and stuff like this, and has no way of actually multiplying. And so it's 95% successful that it won't come back in the new box. Meanwhile, in the old box, where we 6,000, 4,000, we've got 4,000 bees, they basically are taken away and are destroyed. And that's quite, sorry, Jane, it's
No,
not, it, it's a sanitizing position, and it doesn't make you feel good because technically you're, let's use emotive language, you're murdering the 4,000 bees here that are sat inside their cells. But however, you're getting rid of any infection that's inside those cells. You're getting rid of all the comb, the old comb that's inside the cell. You're getting rid of all the varroa. And actually, the shook swarm by itself, you're thinking, oh, it'll knock it back weeks. It'll knock it back weeks. It does. Yes, it does. It knocks the colony back maybe 2 weeks, but by goodness me, they take off. And it's astonishing how quickly they take off. So consider it as a maybe just one hive. Just do one hive maybe and try it and see how you get on. All right.
thank
It's
you. Um,
yeah,
and of course, when you're doing it for EFB, there's no question of using a sacrifice comb because you are
no.
doing it for disease. So you're putting all those bees onto clean foundation, aren't you?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
if you're just doing it for comb replacement, and you can also use it for varroa removal by using a sacrifice comb
Sure.
at the
Yeah.
same time.
And that's
And
great because
there is a
yeah,
laminated sheet actually from BBK in the BBK shop.
yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Diane is holding up.
draw, drone, sorry, drawn brood frames are gold dust, but you need to be very, very careful with them, yeah, in terms of making sure that they've not got disease in them.
Yep. Yep. Okay, thank you. I've got some more questions here. Oh, Mr. Honigman is really called Mr. Honigman. I don't think it's sad. That's a brilliant surname. Oh, what proportion of your time, Keith, was spent reacting to calls from beekeepers who have got concerns they think they might have a problem, compared with the standard, the planned sampling inspections?
Um, the plan. So we have kind of well, the inspectors have kind of two lists. There's what we call the red list, which is the inspections that they have to go and see or try and
Okay.
go and to say. And because these people are within an area where there has been an infection, all right. So they take up, I would say maybe 70% of your time, maybe. Then you have an amber list, which is just outside. And then you would get, I don't know, maybe about 10% of my time was somebody calling me up or me
Oh.
going out. And that's great because actually the call outs are good. Well, they're good fun because the beekeeper, you're not having to organize, cold call the beekeeper, ask them,
Mhm.
can we sort this out? The bee the beekeeper wants you there, and it's a great time. You can have, I mean, the job in that respect is brilliant because you meet so many different people and so many different bees, which is very interesting.
I've got one big topic that two or three people have asked about. Somebody said, "Well, um, you can't use a blowtorch on a polyhive," and there's
Yeah.
a couple of other people asking about when would you use washing soda and when would you use bleach, and I wonder if you could give us a bit of an explanation about that.
Right. Blowtorch on polyhives, yes, strangely enough, it melts them. Please do not put a polyhive on a fire if you because they need to go to a proper incinerator. I accidentally put a polyhive or a polynuke on a fire, and we decided we were never going to do that again. Not good. Okay. Polyhives can be disinfected with a bleach solution, and it's a faff and it's a pain. You need a big container to get the polyhive into. You have a bleach solution, which is off the top of my head. I can't think of point. There, it's on the bee unit site. Somebody will tell me at some point. But and you need a breeze block. You need a breeze block to be able to put on top of the hive, and you submerge it for at least half an hour, 20 minutes, I think it is this thing. There is work going on to try and find something which would be easier for people to use. All right. Flat without doing flash with bleach takes off propolis really well for some reason. I have no I'm not so washing soda is good for taking propolis off bee suits, stuff like this, and actually for giving sterilizing between hives because it's such an alkali solution, and it's easier to wash the bits and pieces off it. Bleach you use for sterilizing poly hives. And once you've sterilized them for 20 minutes each side, wash them down as well, because if you put the bleach, the hive straight back into the colony, they don't particularly like it. And again, if you use acetic acid as well to fumigate frames, you may want to leave the frames out for a wee while rather than putting them straight back into the hive because that can cause trouble as well.
Yeah, while I think about a week in my case, yeah.
Yeah,
Oof,
yeah, yeah.
the
No, no.
entire area smells like a chip shop.
If you're doing acetic acid, what do you call it? Roller bins. You know the poly bins.
Not them, but I thought it
Brilliant. They're
was.
absolutely brilliant. They you can get going on them.
Oh, right. Um, what else have we got? Um, there was a nice one here. Oh, somebody asked about going back to your role in shook swarming and EFB,
Hmm.
and they want to know about the honey. Is the honey contaminated and does it need to be destroyed?
Yes, it's contaminated. No, it doesn't. If it's for human consumption, all right? However, all right. So you can't then. So let's say you've got a contaminated hive. The honey that's above there. Now you can take that honey off and use that for human consumption, but the frames need to go back and get destroyed at the time. All right. However, say if you took that soup, you spun the super out and left the super inside your honey house, and then put it outside to for the bees to clean off. Right, a huge risk for EFB to be transmitted and stuff like that, and actually very bad practice. Okay, so the best way is spin the honey off and to be used for human consumption only. If you're going to feed it back to the bees, it definitely needs to be destroyed because the bacteria is inside there. And I mentioned this bee inspector, very experienced bee inspector, who said you do two shook swarms. Uh, Time and time again, he found it was the supers that was where the EFB was coming back into it, coming back into, I mean, some of these are commercial beekeepers. And, if it's one or two colonies, it's not so bad. But if it's hundreds of colonies with hundreds of supers, it becomes quite an issue because people don't, because supers are expensive pieces of kit to keep going.
So the honey can be extracted and used for human consumption, but you shouldn't,
Only.
yes, you shouldn't reuse the supers because they're contaminated. Right.
Yeah,
Thank
the
you. It's
super
very
needs to
good.
go back onto the hive and then gets burnt. The frames will get burnt with the shook swarm at the
And
end of
this,
it.
do you flame the supers as well?
Yeah, flame the
Once you've
supers. We
burnt the
said,
frame.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
but we
Oh,
burn the frames.
that's interesting because that's a thing lots of us don't know. Um, I can see all these people listening. Is there any other question people would like to ask? Can't see anybody waving madly. In that case, I want to say, oh, Amanda, go ahead. You're on mute, so you'll need to unmute.
Still on mute.
That's it.
There we go.
I've just asked a question about UVC light to sterilise polyhives as they use in the hospitals and things. Have you known of anybody do that, or is it effective, and any studies on it?
I haven't heard of that. I've heard of radiation. Some people have tried radiation on trying to sterilize things, but obviously that's very expensive and very dangerous in certain positions. But no, not that. The only thing I've heard about UV light is I listened to a chap basically telling me that he has a UV torch, and that makes him be able to see the eggs in cells. And I tried it and it didn't work. But sometimes I use a torch to be able to see inside the cells, which is quite a good thing. But sorry, apologies, haven't heard anything of
UVC is slightly different than UV light though, because it's got the well, it's like a heat element. You're not meant to look at it when you put it in a room. If you use it for hospital and things, you're meant to go out because it affects the eyes and things. But it'll if you leave plants in there, it'll kill the plants off as well.
Right. So does it actually give some heat as well to
it's not really heat, but it will burn the plants and things. Yeah. It's to do with the rays, but you can't feel the heat, but you can't actually look at it. Yeah, they tell you to leave the room if you use it in a room.
Okay. No, sorry, apologies. Never, but hopefully somebody pick it up and we can try it because
interesting.
It would be interesting because the poly hive sterilization is difficult, and if we can find something that's cost effective and easier, then that would be a win.
Yeah, and you put it on for like 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and leave it in with the room and just leave it and get all the sides. So it'd be quite, if it worked, it'd be quite a handy way to do it and quick.
Yeah. Good.
All right. Thank you anyway.
Thank you.
We have one from Luke as well.
Hi there, Keith. Thank you very much. Great presentation. Really enjoyed it. I'm a bit of a beginner, and I've learned so much this evening. I mean, a huge amount. And your presentation style is just brilliant. Just a quick question. You showed a picture of all these drone heads sticking through the queen excluder. How do you stop that happening?
Well, technically, what happened there, well, to be honest, I don't really know because I came into it was an abandoned hive in some respects. So I don't actually know, but what has happened in my experience is so you have your floor, your brood box. Usually people have queen excluders. Some people will argue not to have queen excluders, but most, as a beginner, have a queen excluder, and then your super. Now the wired queen excluders, if there's a little nick in the wire, the queen will go up. So when you're going through your brood box, you go, oh, I don't have a queen, don't have a queen. All right, have a look in the super because sometimes she's up there. All right. Other times, the queen will swarm from underneath from the brood box, and just for argument's sake, you've knocked down all the queen cells before she swarmed because sometimes she'll go anyway. She'll go. All right. They take eggs through the queen excluder and they will make a queen cell upstairs. If the queen is made upstairs, usually she can be a runt and she'll get through it, but sometimes she won't. She can't get mated. She becomes a drone layer and she starts laying drones. And that's how you can get drones above a queen excluder, if you've got a drone laying queen above there. Okay. Sometimes it's just the people trap they don't realize that the queen has gone onto one of the super combs as they're manipulating their bees around and stuff like this. So try and, if you're going to move double brood boxes, try and put a queen excluder between the brood box that you've got and any supers that you then subsequently put on top of the brood box, because sometimes the queen will get up into that super.
The picture you showed looked like it had the drones were coming up from the brood box into the super.
Yeah, it did, but actually they were the drone heads on the top, so they were trying to get down, but they couldn't get down, and they chopped their they chop the rest of their bodies off, and you just get the heads for some reason. I don't exactly, to be honest, Luke, I don't know exactly what happened there. You know, and this is one of the good things about beekeeping and bad things about beekeeping, because sometimes you just don't really know what's going on, and you just, well, okay, and see what happens. And you have to adapt to what the bees are doing around you, really.
Brilliant.
Which
And Keith,
very frustrating for beginners.
Can you give us more talks in the future? Because I've learned so much. It'd be great if we could make this an annual or even biannual event. So
well, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, best of luck.
Well, thanks
You
again.
get bored with me.
Thank you very much. Well, the impression I get is people are not getting bored, Keith. There's lots of thank yous in the messages. We've got somebody who says things have changed a bit since he was a foulbrood officer for the Ministry of Fisheries and Food in the 1970s.
Yes. Wow.
And we've also got somebody who said, is it possible to request a general inspection? It doesn't think there's anything wrong with his bees, but it would be really nice to have someone call showing some good practice.
Yes. Well, no. Technically, you're meant to. Yeah. I mean, the different regions do bee health days, and they're very good way of, you know, for beekeepers to meet the inspectors and vice versa. And you know, there's a great exchange of views and techniques at those bee days.
Oh yes, we've got 2 planned for this summer, and we've not had any for a while, and so we're really looking forward to it. And they're, of course, the only way that people like us can see infected combs under controlled circumstances. So if you get the chance to go to an MBU, organise the days with your area association, I highly recommend it.
It's and we try, well, man, we were doing it. We try to get it relatively fresh disease combs, because they do deteriorate very rapidly. But there's nothing, well, I suppose there's nothing worse, but there's nothing better than actually seeing the real thing. You can look at it in pictures and on you know, in books and all the rest of it, but until it hits you between the eyes, when you actually see it on the comb, it's a different ball game in some respects.
Oh, thank you very much. That was really, really interesting. Something for everybody there. And we hope you'll be back for another episode.
Well, we'll see. Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody. Best
Thank
of
you,
luck in your
everybody.
beekeeping. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith, very much. Bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye, Keith. Take
Ciao.
care.
Bye.
Thank you. Much obliged.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.